Good evening. I'm Pearl Klein. I'm your trainer for this evening. I've been with Downsize Farm since before we were opened, and it remains a very important part of my heart. It's near and dear. I'm glad to be able to be doing tonight's training, which is best practices in dehabilitation, and we are reviewing our standards of quality. So I'm going to go through this, and afterwards I'll be available for you to answer any of your questions you may have. So let me get started by sharing the screen. All right, as I said, we're revisiting quality tonight. We have not a lot of new people, some newer people, and we haven't had this training for a while. Some of you people who've been around for a while will know some of what I'm about to say, but it all benefits us to hear it together and to understand that we are operating as a team under the Downsize Farm philosophy, as well as the rules and laws of the state. So you are DAHAB providers. The Downsize Farm DAHAB function is actually threefold. We are required to do record keeping and compliance with all laws. I've said every time that opportunity ever comes up, it doesn't matter what you do, if you didn't record it, it didn't happen. So that is a very succinct part of what we have to do for Medicaid and for Department of Developmental Disabilities. Downsize Farm is intent on sharing joy. And you can see that in Bob, for example. But I want you to think about how you will be able to do this after you've watched this training. And then you're also teaching skills and supporting the community connection. And according to the state, that's ideally leading to a vocational pursuit. But we know the practical side of that. We are doing DAHAB to increase relationship skills and connect people with other people in the community. So we are actively engaged every day in those three things. And remember, some of you have heard this before, but the definition of habilitation, a lot of people confuse that with rehabilitation, which is that you're relearning something. Like a veteran has lost a skill because of a wound, and he has to relearn how to do a task. For us, we're teaching something that the person doesn't know. Habilitate is to make fit or capable, as in for functioning in society. Every Medicaid pot of money that goes out to support people has to have a corresponding goal that the person's life is being improved. And because this is DAHAB, we're helping them learn something they don't know that fits the goals of their lives. So the law requires daily record keeping. It must be precise. We must answer the questions exactly. The law says it must be contemporaneous with service delivery. And that's a bunch of words to say, you need to record it when it happens, not a week from now and try to remember what happened. And we're saying that it has to tell the story of the client because you're helping shape his future. You're the person who's going to know him best at Downsize Farm, and you're the person who's going to be able to convey to his treatment team, to his team of people who are helping him get what he wants, how he is performing and what his joys are, what his barriers are, and what you've come up with to help him get around those things. One of the things that has come up since the dawn of record keeping is the difference between goals and services. And they seem the same because we're kind of keeping them in the same location in Britco, but they're very distinctly different. A goal is what the client is working on for his own learning. It is his own personal measure of getting from point A to whatever point he's headed to. They are now referred to as outcomes more than goals, but people who've been around for a while use the term goals. And remember, we're helping him get somewhere that he didn't already know how to do something. And when we're recording that, we're recording his progress in reaching the goal. Now, there's steps that we're going to set up for him, possibly prompts, It's possibly we're going to make sure he remembers to do something in a certain time, but the measure of progress is not what we do to set it up. It's a given. It's what he does in answering it. You're going to indicate if he did it, if he didn't, but there's also a section for notes. And what you're going to talk about is the outstanding elements. Did he struggle with this? Did he do a great job? Did he soar? What makes it remarkably different from another day? What you don't need to say is Billy did his goal, because you just checked that he did his goal. You don't even have to record anything if it was a common thing and a repetition of a standard day. Now, as I said, goals are created so that individuals move toward what's important to them. If a person, say Johnny wants to get a job at Burger King, and Johnny has poor hygiene, it's important to him to get a job at Burger King, but it's important for him to learn better hygiene and to shower every day. So his goal, that would be a home goal, but his goal would be to shower every day because he has something he wants to move toward. Goals are meant to be written in the positive and to be able to be clearly measured. An ambiguous goal like he'll get better at, how do you measure that? Or a negative goal, he'll stop hugging everybody he sees. How do you measure a stop? And how negative is that anyway? What you want to say is, what is the positive thing we want him to do instead? So when you're doing the goals, if you mark that he did his goal or refused or was not able in Britco, then you're going to leave that trail. An example of Billy's goal is to high five people once per day, and the intent is to eliminate the constant physical hugging he prefers. In the notes, you might say, Billy has refused and insisting on hugging throughout the day. So you're going to say that why he didn't reach his goal today. Now, as opposed to outcomes or goals, there are services. A service is what we, the staff, do for the client. They're here because they need us to support them in different ways. These services are very specific to the individual, and they are clearly spelled out in the IP. And I think I've said before, and you know that the IP is our contract. What's in there is what we have agreed to do when a member of Downsize Farms signs that they accepted that IP. So the IP should also have the frequency or the occurrence time. It might be that you assist them in walking on uneven surfaces. So if they're not walking on an uneven surface, your support wasn't needed. Or every time it rains, or when it's very cold, or every Monday before he leaves, or after every meal. It's going to be very specific, and you're going to know that because you will have been reading the IP, and you will have been taught what's important to and important for, and it's all in Britco. So if it was scheduled for that day or that episode, and we didn't do the service, we list that it was not completed or not done, but we go into our notes and list why not, because it's our contract to provide the service. So if it wasn't scheduled for that day or episode, we just list NA. You don't have to go in and put we didn't do it and then go in and write notes because this is Monday and it's only due on Friday. You're going to put NA. It's going to be a given. And then your notes are going to indicate what was remarkable about the service delivery, if anything was remarkably good or poor, or why we didn't do a service. For example, the service is here in this example is to assist Billy with zipping his coat. So we might write, Billy is refusing to wear his coat and will not allow me to zip it. That's why we didn't provide the service. He says his coat is too small. Staff is calling home to discuss. Now that's saying why we didn't do the goal. We figured out what the problem was, and we're doing something about it. We're not just saying, well, tough cookies, he doesn't have a coat, we don't zip it. So we followed through on that. And what our records are showing is that we cared about Billy and we completed the cycle. We might say, Billy has learned to zip his coat independently. Staff only needs to help now if it's stuck. And if that goes on several days, we may want to alert the navigator, who will get hold of the SSA, And we may change that goal, because why would we keep having him do something he's already mastered? The end result of notes and documentation is to inform the individual's team what's happening with the person on a day-to-day basis. As I said, you're going to know him better than anyone. We could have the finest program in the world. We could have the most beautiful goals and record keeping, but it's you who are going to provide the insight and shape the goals and services to come. If there is some serious issue or trends that you see, if that too small coat doesn't get replaced, we may need to call the navigator or inform the lead staff. This problem keeps going on, because we're all a team to make sure that he gets the best care he can. And besides that, the law says we're required to inform the team and the SSA if events emerge that need attention before the end of the span year. So the IP is supposed to be a living document that dictates how we help support the individual and the care that he gets. And while we're on laws, I want to mention again, confidentiality. By everything in the law, we are required to do confidential treatment of everything concerning an individual. And I think we probably know that we're not going to go to the bowling alley and shout, "Do you need your Depends changed?" We probably have that one down. But what we tend to forget is that we are talking about clients in front of other clients. Even if we have a legitimate reason to talk to another staff person about a client, we shouldn't be doing it so that any client can overhear us, unless we're respectfully addressing the client separately from the rest of the group. So you've got to be careful. There are people who very carefully sneak over and listen to what's being said in the kitchen, and they repeat it. We don't want that. It is a breach of confidentiality in the first place. And in the second place, we are practicing a habit that is not nurturing to our clients. So be careful that you don't speak openly about client issues to staff in the earshot of the client himself, other clients, visitors, customers to the Spotted Cow, or when you're out in the community. You must guard that carefully. And lead staff, we are counting on you to help all of our newer staff to be aware of that and be conscious of it. But beyond the many laws about confidentiality, and think HIPAA, HIPAA violations can fine both the individual who breached the confidentiality and the company, and fines can be large. So beyond HIPAA, our Downsize Farm pledge is to guard the dignity of every single client that's there, and our staff. We want to guard your dignity too. We want the individual to feel that we respect his privacy. He is valuable. We don't correct client in front of other clients. I have heard staff in the past, when I was there on a more day-to-day basis, shout across a crowded room, "Are you going to eat it? Or are you going to play in it?" Of course, that did not allow anybody to save their dignity. It made him an object of ridicule, and it gave all the other clients permission to be in a bullying behavior. I think the person thought the staff person thought he was being funny, but that is not acceptable at Downsize Farm. So we do not call a person down in any manner. I've heard people say, well, they need to learn. Yes, they do. That's what we're here for, but not in that manner. So instead, we're going to speak to them kindly and privately. And yes, there are teachable moments where you really can learn the lesson that needs to be learned in that instance, and not later on in a classroom setting when it was long forgotten, but not at the risk of humiliating him, because these are adults and we're going to treat them as adults and not as children. And unless you're praising the client, it's nobody else's business. And even praising them, be careful what you're praising them for. If you're shouting across the room, "All right, everybody give John a high five. He didn't wet his Depends today. He made it to the bathroom." Of course, that is not what we want. You're praising him for things that he's going to be proud of himself and want everybody to know. If it becomes a serious or repeated issue that you're saying, seeing you may need to contact the lead staff, contact the navigator so that they can address it privately. Very often hygiene issues need to be, if it needs to be reinforced more strongly, we may need to get the navigator in on that. And we may need to engage the family or home staff. And if you humiliate or embarrass any person anywhere, they're losing a part of themselves that you're not going to be able to easily replace. That trust factor, that respect, when you lose that, it takes a lot of time to build it back up. And that dignity and respect is what makes a first person feel like they belong. Inclusion is not a word I like to use a lot. It's belonging in relationships. So if you have a good relationship with somebody, you're not going to humiliate them. So just be aware of that, because we're so busy and we're so engaged in trying to get through the day, we have to remember to lend them their dignity. An example about the teachable moment, say there's a disagreement between a couple of clients. So a teachable moment may be to have those two clients step away from the group, and then you're going to practice a more positive way to communicate. You're going to say, how could you have said that different? What could you have said that would not make him upset? Here's an example. Why don't you practice this and you practice this? So you're going to give them a chance to practice how to do it more properly, more positively. If it's something that's happening with the whole group, get a couple of staff and make a goofy how to do this better in front of the whole group. And then you're not singling anyone out. So again, make it positive, make it reinforcing. Great job. I know next time it's going to be better. We're going to practice those skills. I know you can remember it. Now, if Downsize Farm hears staff be disrespectful to anyone, the staff will probably be taken aside for retraining. We can't allow that to go on. We can't allow it to infiltrate our attitudes and our processes. So we're going to allow the lead staff to help shape you. And if that doesn't produce our desired effect, then we'll go from there. And I don't mean that to be punitive or threatening. Just be aware that it's so important to us, we're going to guard it. Remember that our point is to be uplifting and joyful, even in trying times. And Lord knows we have trying times. But I want you to remember the history of people with disabilities, because this is our small part of ensuring that the world never repeats this. I was in college in 1974, so that is not so long ago. This was taken from a photographic essay called Christmas in Purgatory. And this is what the day was like for people with disabilities in that time, before there were programs like Downsize Farm and competitive groups that allow people to have this kind of positive outlook and positive connection to the community. This is a person hovering over his own urine on a bench. Now, these people have blacked out faces, so you can't see their identity. Why do some people have clothes and some not? Because the stronger people got to the clothes first, and the ones who weren't didn't, and nobody really saw that they had clothes on. You can see that the floor is wet, and you can imagine with what. And the women were in another group, and you can see how they spent their days. So nobody is meaningfully engaged. We are the opposite of this. We are respecting their dignity, and we're enforcing their rights, because this is what they've deserved all along. So we expect that your philosophy is ours. You see on the left, those are some younger people, not adults, but you can see that they're hiding their faces. They are not facing out, they're facing behind. They don't belong, they're turned away. And then in the right picture, you see that they are open and engaged and in the community and cheerful and joyful. And that's the difference. Downsize Farm is determined that every person we have feels respected and valued. So teachable moments, remember, you're the model. It is said that more is caught than taught. If you say something and then you don't model it, then you are unteaching everything you just said. You wasted your time. And personal engagement is a really big thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but you should know that there are people who come to Downsize Farm who have limited home staff. They don't see people very often, or they don't have any family. You know, they've passed away. So we, their day program staff and drivers, become their anchor. Now, not everybody's like that, but there are those who, if there's a holiday and a snow day, they don't see any people for weeks. So we want to remember how important we are to them. So it's our philosophy to make sure we greet everybody when they come into the building or they board the bus. And when I say greet, I mean over the top. Be big, be friendly, be engaging, make sure that they know you're talking to them. And that's part 2 of the Day Hab job, that's sharing joy. And if you want to view it practically, clients don't have to come here. Every client has a choice of what he does with his day and where he goes. They can stay home on any given day, or they can go to another program entirely. They could decide, it was boring yesterday, I don't want to go back. Well, you may not know this, but we only are paid when clients actually attend. I said clients on the bus equals no funds, no clients on the bus, but if they came in the day program by some other means, that still works. However, there have been staff I've talked to in the past who think, okay, we get paid for them whether they're here or not. It isn't so. We only get paid when they attend. So a reason to make sure that we're engaging with them and that they want to be there is so they keep coming back. So what makes them eager to come to Downsize Farm? Yes, we have a different location. We have different programs. We're out in the community. I like our programs, but it's more than that. The reason they come to Downsize Farm is you. It's your happiness in seeing them. It's your personal connection. It's who you are to make them feel filled with joy so that when they go home at night, they lay out their clothes for tomorrow because they want to come back and see you. So you're going to be constantly engaging with them. I know the tendency because staff need to talk to each other. They congregate down in the kitchen or in a corner of the room, and we tend not to engage with people. But that's what our job is. Billy, I'm so glad to see you. Hey, how was your weekend? How's that new hamster? Well, that means you have to have paid attention to what he said and remember it, so you can ask the hamster question. Do you have your costume ready for the Halloween party? Hey, have a great evening. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Don't forget, we're doing whatever. We're going to be in the pool tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow's bowling day. Don't forget. You don't have to pack a lunch. We're having a party. Whatever it is, you're big and you're loud and you're joyful. You could see all the words that joy means: delight, gladness, jubilance, ecstasy, transport, comfort, gaiety. But it's your job to be producing all of those in a cheerful attitude. So you're going to smile and create an atmosphere of joy even on rainy days, which tend to be gloomy. But our clients are going to respond and mirror your attitudes, and that day will become exciting because you made it exciting. So you remember the Cheers theme song? I've said this many times in the past, so forgive me if you've heard it, but the Cheers theme song from the old Cheers bar sitcom, where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. Well, our clients need to know that all day, every day, that here at Downsize Farm, they're loved. They want you to know them, that they matter. So be over the top, be bigger and more enthusiastic to get and keep their attention, and create a sense of anticipation for the next exciting thing on your schedule. Yeah, big and loud. So, Day Hab Part 3, promoting active engagement, actually helping them learn to be able to do something that they couldn't do before. Okay, so here's the problem. Statistics say, now this is talking about housing, but it bears extrapolating that and applying it to day programs. Residents in 15 supported housing services, this was in 1995, received direct contact from staff for an average of 15% of the time. Amount of support received is about 9 minutes in every hour, and facilitative assistance was 1 to 4 minutes an hour on average. That's how little active engagement they got. Staff do not generally interact with the people they support in a way that enables people to achieve greater levels of independence, participation, or integration. And that was in 2007. So from 95 to 2007, you're seeing that nothing really improved, that staff were not directly engaging. Well, we want to turn that around. One of the reasons is that the CDC, Center for Disease Control, in May 2014, said that adults with disabilities are 3 times more likely to have heart disease, stroke, diabetes, or cancer than adults without disabilities. They think that part of that reason is that nearly half of all adults with disabilities get no physical activity. And that's an important health behavior to help avoid the chronic diseases. So part of our engaging people is going to be with your mindset that I am helping them be active. I'm helping them move. I'm helping engage their brain and helping them not just learn new things, but retain what they have. I put this in just because I like it. The only disability in life is a bad attitude. So regardless of what our adults bring to us, we're going to help them have a good attitude and to get where they want to go. This is called the hotel model. I've used it before, but I like going to hotels, not in the COVID era, but I like going somewhere where somebody else has made the bed, where I just walk in, and when I come back the next day, the towels are fresh and everything's clean. That's good. And you don't get to do that very often, but it is it's refreshing because somebody else is doing the work. But the way that it's bad is in the hotel model in staff and client engagement. So you start out in the hotel model is that staff do most things for clients rather than create opportunities for service users or clients to participate themselves. So that leads to clients don't participate in valued activities and spend most of their time doing nothing, trailing behind the leader who's doing a job or sitting at the table watching the leader do the job. And that leads to staff perceive clients as dependent. They don't spend time interacting with or assisting clients, or they're apprehensive about trying new things with clients because clearly clients don't do anything. And that leads to staff can't think of any goals or activities clients could do. They see their role as a helper worker rather than an enabler to enable them to do the task. So that leads to the whole cycle again. So it's a vicious cycle of disempowerment. You've taken away from them their ability to do something. And it has a number of negative results. Statistically, the skill level of the person being supported is going to drop. The opportunity for new skill development obviously is not allowed, and the person will not automatically be encouraged and supported to participate in activities that relate to their own lives. So it has like a snowball effect. If they become dispirited and disempowered in cooking class or in feeding the chickens, it translates to other things and they don't speak up for themselves because they don't think anybody's listening. They lose their motivation and their confidence. And then behavior that we find challenging is likely to creep in. If they're bored, and what is it? Idle hands are the devil's playground. Well, if a person is not actively engaged in mind and body, they're going to find something to engage their mind and body. These are bad things. So what's the difference? The difference is active support. Active support is a method of supporting people with learning disabilities or any sort of intellectual incapacity to engage in meaningful activities and relationships as active participants. And of course, that's the key, active participants, not viewers. So based on using ordinary everyday activities, you're encouraging choice and engagement, and you're increasing independence. You're going to be working with people in order to promote optimal engagement without any consideration for the degree of disability. So you're going to look at every person who's assigned to you in your group in the activity you're doing that day and thinking, what do they love and how can I get them interested? How can I get them to hold the spoon, the rake, the mop, the paintbrush, whatever it is you're doing in an activity? An active support causes Downsized Farm staff to look at every moment as having potential. You're looking at the right now, not if they could only, when they get to, once they learn. Now you're talking about today. Here's what we can do with them. And you're going to try the little and often approach, not awful, little and often. It means if they're reluctant to do something or they can't learn more than one small piece of a task at a time, you're going to ask them to do a little many times. You're not going to say, oh, okay, well, you handed me the spoon. Now you sit there for the next 45 minutes. You're going to continue to say, oh, and now can you take the top off this? Will you hold this for me? You're just going to keep on involving them. And then you're going to monitor and review the team consistency. Is somebody working more than somebody else? Is somebody sitting while somebody else watches? You're going to have to keep finding ways to get everybody engaged. What we feel bad when we see is a staff person just working themselves to death to create an activity and everybody else is sitting watching. Remember, this is just a tip in general. Take sweeping the barn, the hay from the barn. Say you have 3 staff in a week who go out with clients and help them sweep the barn. It is always easier for 10 members of a staff without a learning disability to learn one way of doing the same activity than it is for one client with a learning disability to learn 10 different ways of doing the same activity. So if staff A says, sweep this way, sweep from left to right and put it in a pile in the middle of the floor, and staff B says, sweep from the front end to the back end and sweep it all with you when you get there, and staff C says something yet different, the client is not going to know how to sweep. And he's going to wait for somebody to tell him what to do. So when you are planning activities, Lacey is going to help us find that basis of how are we going to teach. Maybe we need to write it and post it, always sweep from front to back, or always gather the gather the eggs before you feed the chickens, whatever it is, because then they have a better chance of remembering it and repeating it. And then they have ownership for that. That was just an aside. So there's a hierarchy of assistance when you're doing person-centered action. How you support them is going to be based on the level of need for that activity. It's called graded assistance, meaning that it goes from a lower level of assistance to a higher level. First, you ask, can you do this? What do we do next? Then you instruct, well, this is what we do next, and here's how you do it, and be careful the knife is sharp, or eggs break easily, whatever it is. Prompt, okay, now is when you need to stir. You may have to show them, now when you stir, here's a better way to do it. Let me show you. You need to make sure you're scraping the bottom of the bowl. And maybe you need to do a hand over hand guide. Here, let me help you. Let me show you that. But it isn't an always start at point 1 and move to point 5. You go back and forth within that. The level of help increases, but you need to be flexible because you can use different levels together and switch back and forth between what is needed at the time. So you can say, remember yesterday how we did this? Oh, okay, let me show you that again. Okay, now you remember. So you're including all of those steps so that you are able to make people feel what? Empowered. So as you're looking at tasks, you're thinking in steps. It's called task analysis. So you're going to break down activities into steps, and you're going to do one step at a time. And every activity has some easier components. It is not that a person has to be able to bake the cookies from beginning to end. Every step in there is something a person could do. And you've got to know what your tasks are and think of them ahead of time. So the problem is there are many things that people with severe learning disabilities can't do entirely for themselves. The solution is everybody has some ability and can be involved in every activity if they're given enough direct assistance, and if you break that task down into sufficiently small steps that they can master them. So you're going to be providing the support that bridges the gap between what people can do and can't do, and you're going to help them be more can than cannot. Yeah, bright idea. So your objective is to be doing with them, not doing it for them. They need to be actively engaged in every part. That makes you the coach instead of the staff person who's doing the task. You're the coach to help them be able to do it. So your main job is working directly with clients, and you're going to refocus on this piece of doing with, not for. And you need to avoid that hotel model where you're doing everything for the client and the client becomes a non-participating spectator in their own lives, because the more they sit, the less they want to engage. You can't let it slip. So it's easy to think that we're involving them because we're talking to them while we're actually doing the task or activity. But if they don't have their hands on it or in some way contributing to it, then they are not owning it. And it takes a lot more time to allow a client to actively participate, but they're all going to know when they've actually contributed. If you're trying to teach a toddler, and I'm not comparing these adults to toddlers, but as an example, to fold laundry or to put laundry in the drawers from the laundry basket, you could have done it 10 times yourself in the time it takes them to get it right. But what you have is a toddler who's proud of himself. And what you'll have here is an adult who, having learned something and knows that I cut those up, I swept this floor, I fed that goat, whatever it is, I volunteered on this activity. I am a part of that. They know they've contributed. And yes, it's going to take your planning ahead and thinking fast on the spot. And Lacey's there to help you with that. She's experienced in this, and as she does the schedule, she's thinking what clients can do what things and what are their interests. So they're in groups that reflect their activity, interest, and level of engagement in that. She wouldn't have put them in there if there wasn't some way for them to connect. So know the clients who are in the activity and think about ahead about who's going to be able to do a particular task in that. You can figure out what jigs or adaptations might be needed for something you do regularly. And a jig or an adaptation, if you don't know, is a way to modify the job or steady a person's hand or make it easier for them to do something that you do all the time. An example of that is the coffee bag labels. They have a jig that the labels fit in, or the bags fit in, so that they get the label at just the right place. Cues and prompts could be things that remind them without you repeating the conversation over and over. It might be a gesture, might be a piece of tape on the floor, sweep it here, put the bag of feed here, whatever it is that you routinely do. It could be a paint mark on the side of a measuring cup for what you typically do, to make the fill it full to here so that they know, or a mark on a stove dial. So you are maximizing choice and control when you're doing this. Remember, part of the state mandate for us, Medicaid mandate actually, is that we're doing self-empowerment. We're doing self-determination and self-advocacy, meaning that they're going to know what they want and they're going to be able to speak up for themselves. So when you help them know that they can do things and you congratulate them on a job well done, they are feeling like they have control and choice because it's their life. You're offering them options, you're respecting their preferences. Lacey's already done that when she put them in different activities, different venues. But say you have a person who just cannot stand to be cold. They're probably not going to be part of the winter chicken feed group because they can't stand it. And that's okay. Their preference is to be inside. So if you know something that Lacey doesn't know, you're going to share that with her. And you're going to broaden their experiences, just nudge their barriers a little bit more and a little bit more by encouraging that participation a little and often. And farm tasks are a great place to start practicing skills because you're right there. There's always something to do. And when you're doing it for animals, you know that you're really taking care of something. It's not meaningless. Just posted this because I thought it was cool. Don't diss my ability. Everybody has some ability to do something, and you as staff are helping bring that out. So what's the opposite of the hotel model, the vicious cycle of disempowerment? It's the virtuous circle of positive interaction and empowerment engagement. So as an opposite, staff interact positively with clients and they provide opportunities for participation. And that leads to clients participate successfully in part of the activities. They own some part of it. And that leads to staff perceive clients as more competent. They give them more respect and control and attention. And consequently, the client feels more confident, successful, and eager to try new things. And that leads to staff think of new ideas for more goals and activities. Staff see themselves as enablers. Staff get excited too because look, we have increased this person's capacity. And that leads to more of the same. So you can see how this is the model we want to use, the positive interaction and empowerment cycle, not the hotel model. And it transfers to community because it's part of what we're doing. The community is going to see the staff interact positively with clients and see the staff provide opportunities for participation. They're going to see the clients successfully participate. The community is going to perceive clients as more competent. They're going to give more respect, more control, more attention, and consequently, the client is going to feel more confident in the community, more successful and eager to try new things. The community is going to think of new ways to allow clients into their activities and see themselves as enablers for our clients to be more engaged in the community, which leads to the cycle again. So it is only positive. So staff feedback. They tried this model in a couple of experiments, and 76% of staff reported an increase in motivation in the people being supported. Now, how they measured 76%, I'm not sure, but they saw that the people were motivated because they were engaging with them. 84% reported an increase in participation in everyday activities. That's pretty big. 65% reported a decrease in behavior that was challenging the team. I would say that if you didn't have any other reason to do it, this would be the reason. 73% of managers said their teams were more motivated, meaning the whole group, the staff and the clients. 84% of managers said they would benefit from further support, meaning that they would benefit from further support in this model. There was an increase of 94% in engagement in meaningful activities. 94%, that's pretty huge. There was an increase of 300% in staff engagement with the client, staff assistance, staff actually doing things with clients. 300%, that's mammoth. There were increases not just in participation at the program, but also it spread into the community and the person being able to make choices for himself and articulate what those choices are. A decrease in 24% of repetitive self-stim behaviors, the things that people do when they are not occupied with anything. And a decrease in 53% in self-injurious behavior. So if statistics speak to you, here are some statistics that will say it is much better to be actively engaged than to be observing the group while you work. And yes, this purposeful treatment is respect. It's dignity. It's positive thinking. It's can do, or let's find something as close as possible, not can't or won't. We're turning can'ts and won'ts into can do and will do. It's using humor. You jolly them along. If they make a mistake, you're not making fun of them and laughing at them, but you're saying, whoops, that egg was slippery. You're making it easy for them to make mistakes. And it's also being firm about all the basic rules we have that are for the good of everybody, because clients can tell inequitable treatment if someone gets to break the rules and they don't. So we're doing all this while being firm about what it is our point is. And it's genuine caring. It's going to show you care about every single person who is with you in that group. Now we have this plan schedule, and as I said, Lacey went to great lengths to consult with you guys and look at what the clients could do, what they were interested in, what their goals and future are, and how we can be more engaged in the community. So we've got a planned schedule, and within that, we're teaching every day. We're engaging in every period that we've got them. We're letting everyone do something, no matter how limited. Oh, sorry, I went too fast. But as I said, you use the jigs and adaptations wherever you can. And if you can't figure out how to make something, bring somebody in who can, because we have some very clever people. But our motto has been, since we opened years ago, sitters are quitters. If you want them to come back tomorrow, you've got to keep them engaged in activities. Boredom is the antithesis of Downsize Farms expectation. So give them something that makes them feel like they're part of the group. And again, remember that the people who are, the percentage of people with disabilities who get life-threatening conditions because of inactivity, Downsize Farm is a very good place to keep them moving. So standards and outcomes. We need to establish standards for every one of our main activities. For example, that's sweeping. Let's set a standard for how we're doing it so that we're all doing the same thing. Everything can teach something. If it doesn't seem important, you're still teaching taking turns. That's important. If they want to go to McDonald's and not get into a fist fight with somebody else in line, teach them how to wait their turn in line. Sharing things is going to apply to every single thing on the planet. Conversational skills, relationship skills, and everything has the opportunity for applied academics. And if you don't know, applied academics means that you're teaching counting or reading or safety skill signs in the middle of doing something. You're applying that. You're not setting them down and say, do this workbook and learn how to add. You're helping them remember things that are academic, because you are teaching them those skills in the middle of doing something. They're applied. And you're going to seize the teachable moment. If somebody flounders on something or there's a safety skill you need to teach, you're going to bring that right in. Watch for positive reinforcement activities. When can you say, high five, great job, look at this great job he did? Wherever it is, look, the floor is clean, look, the eggs are clean. Whatever it is that you're doing, watch for a way to say something positive, and you're spreading that energetic joy. I put this in just to say this is also the antithesis of Downsize Farm. We are not one size fits all. That's why we have so many programs, why we have so many opportunities, why we have so many places we go and things we try, and why we look for a staff who have diverse skill sets, because we don't have one size fits all. We are trying to be a program that helps everyone fit where they belong. And remember that the life you live is the lesson you teach. When you come in cheerful and positive, that's what they're going to learn. You can say be cheerful all day, but if you have a snarl, and I know this as a mother, they're going to remember the snarl, not the be cheerful words. So today's training takeaways: document thoroughly and actively. Make sure you're documenting on the day or as close to possible as the time that you did the service or watched the goal. Include notes about successes, barriers, or trends. If it's remarkably good, remarkably bad, something you learned, something that you're seeing happen. They have gotten better at something and really don't need this goal anymore. They're independent. Remember the difference between goals and services. Goals or outcomes are what the client is doing to show improvement himself. They should be written positively and be measurable. We may have to help SSAs remember that. Sometimes they're pretty busy and have a huge caseload. So our navigators are very good at helping structure goals that fit what we do here. And respond to all client goals and staff services, because that's our contract. When we sign the IP, if it's in the IP, it's put in Britco, and that's our job. That's what we have to do to verify that we earned the money that we're bringing in from the clients being there. Number 2 takeaway is share the joy. Ensure the dignity of our clients. Don't correct them or talk about clients in front of anybody. Make sure that nobody who is not on their team is listening. Make sure no clients can hear you. Don't leave any documents or computers open that people who are able to read can see, because you're ensuring the dignity. And you're not going to correct them across the room. Even though there's a teachable moment, you're going to take them aside. And if you need to, you're going to go to the navigator or the lead staff to say, this person needs more than I can provide here, or can you help me? Or do we need to go to the home team, the home family or staff for some reason? Number 3, share more joy. Be cheerful and engage every client every day in positive relationships where he knows he matters. Coming to Downsize Farm is what he wants to do because you're there. You are his special friend and you love him. I have seen this face-to-face. Clients come because they want to see the staff. And it's very hard for them when a staff is not there or a staff has left. And I know that new staff, that's a challenge because they're getting to know you and there's more than one at a time sometimes. So you're just going to work harder. And the people who've been there for a while are going to help bridge that. They're going to make sure that you have some connectedness. Oh, you know, this new staff loves the Reds. Look, he's wearing a Reds t-shirt. So they're going to help bridge it too. You're not on your own. And then lastly, you're going to remember that sitters are quitters. If they are sitting doing nothing, nodding off, and I've gone in and seen people sleeping in the middle of groups that are going on, get them engaged. Make sure that you're breaking the tasks down into something that everybody can do, and make sure they're not just trailing behind you while you do the work. There may be some times that you're showing an example and they're following along behind you with that example, but give them the chance to do it, even if you're doing a demonstration. And plan ahead. Know what your activity is ahead of time. Know who's going to be in there. Think about, what can I do to break this into meaningful bites so that everyone has something they can do, and then celebrate the end result. Okay, that is our training for tonight on DAHAB, reviewing quality. So you are going to be turning in your proof of learning. And remember, before you're done, to sign out on the training sheet, or someone of administration is going to take a screenshot of everybody's picture who's engaging in Zoom, as I will be. But make sure that proof of learning gets sent to POKlein@gmail.com, or if for some reason you don't have that, you can get it to Mary Jo. So you're going to have time now to complete your proof of learning and make sure they're submitted either by email or in person to Bobby. And I thank you very much for your time. And I am here now to answer questions. So if anybody has any comment they want to make, Lacey, I would love to hear your input. Anybody who wants to contribute to something they picked up from this, I will stop the recording now and let you ask the questions of me real time. So thank you very much. I hope that it was memorable.